I have two stories about mentorship. One is when I was a young stockbroker, just out of college, going into a field that was so big and uh, you just can't get your arms around it. And plus, I'm a woman in a man's arena, and it's scary. Uh, so I have a story about a mentor there who really saw my potential and knew that if I just could have a little confidence, just a little confidence, that then everything would change for me. I believe I had no confidence. I was up against men who, and women, I think, who really don't really want you to succeed in that industry, and went out of their way to make sure that I was not, not incentivized, not paid well, and it was tough. But I was in a generation that was kind of like the first women to really break through the glass ceiling and do something that we'd never done before. Because at the time when I became a stockbroker, they were not hiring women to be stockbrokers. You needed to be a secretary first for about 10 years, or some kind of supportive role. But for you to actually be the decision maker was tough. So my mentor was a gentleman who had his own broker dealership, his own brokerage firm in New York City. And he was about 20 years my senior. And he said, why don't you just leave the major companies? At the time I was with Dean Witter Reynolds, and then I went on to Oppenheimer and Company. And these are major, major firms, international firms. And he said, why don't you just open your own firm? And I said, you can't do that. And he said, yes, you can. I did, and you can too. And all it takes is just put your head down and do what is required. And it did take me a few years to get all of the extra licenses, to do all of the required legal paperwork, so that I could have my own company in my own name. And that's exactly what I did. I was one of the first women on the West Coast. Of course, there were women earlier on the East Coast that had broken that barrier, but not on the West Coast. So I probably was one of two, maybe three at the most, women who had opened my own broker dealership at the time when people said, there's no way, you'll die. You'll die if you go away from the major companies. But with his help and his encouragement, I had the confidence to move through all of the barriers, and I did. The second example of a mentor who really changed my life happened just maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So this was during the second career, let's call it, of my becoming a television producer at a time when I didn't even know that I had that in me. But I was recording a video that I had worked very hard to get together, 3 major personalities: Les Brown, Mary Morrissey, and the late, great Dr. Wayne Dyer. And I recorded in a wonderful Hollywood studio, all 3 at the same time, and we did a tribute to the one man who mentored all 3 of them. Can you imagine? One man who mentored all 3 of those wonderful, great people. And afterward, Les Brown came to me and he said, hey, I want you to produce my next PBS special. And I said, who, me? Who are you talking about? Me? And he said, yeah, well, if you can do this, you can do that. You're a producer. And I said, I am? And he saw in me something I didn't even see in myself. And at the time, I thought, well, I have a choice. I can either say, no, thank you very much, but, gee, that was a nice compliment, or I could believe him. And I chose to ask myself, what is it that he sees in me that I haven't been able to see in myself, that if I did see that in myself, it would change the trajectory of my life. So I began to work on that. And I said, okay, what if I could be a producer? What would that feel like? What would a television producer eat for breakfast? So I started rehearsing what a television producer must eat for breakfast. And I started saying, okay, I'm a television producer, and put it on like a dress. And he changed my life with the declaration that he saw in me a future that I did not see in myself. And I did go on to produce a national television show that was seen by over 300 million people on national cable television, which is now in syndication worldwide and on streaming channels. That's pretty cool. And you can too.